The Law and Justice Foundation of New South Wales. Estimating legal needs for service planning or reporting purposes. When it comes to legal assistance service planning, there are many factors and questions at play. The context in which the planning takes place. What is the current environment? Who are the main stakeholders? What policies and strategic priorities influence or underpin service planning? And of course, what resources are available? Within this context, service planning also considers the key questions of who, where, what, and how. Who are the potential or targeted clients? Are they clients with specific characteristics? Clients who face particular legal issues? Or those who live in a particular area? Or perhaps a combination of these? In other words, this is about identifying legal needs. Next is the where, or locating the need. This may be based on where clients live, but it also includes where legal need is expressed or may be identified. What types of services can best address which particular needs? How do we tailor services to particular client groups? How do we reach these clients? And how do we use and translate evidence-based research and data and consider this alongside local knowledge and expertise to design and deliver services to meet the needs? In this video, we'll focus on the who and the where. That is, assessing legal needs geographically in terms of the relative distribution of potential demand for services. How do you estimate the level and nature of legal need in your jurisdiction or in your service delivery region? There's no singular robust measure or indicator of legal need we can draw on to determine the extent of legal need geographically. But there are many sources of information we can tap into, all with different advantages and limitations. Let's consider some of them. Legal needs surveys. These are generally large-scale surveys that can identify the extent and prevalence of legal need in the community. This means that they help quantify the need. They also highlight the particular vulnerability of different groups to legal issues and their responses when faced with such issues. Using large samples and robust methodology, they allow for more advanced statistical analysis, enabling findings to be generalised to a wider population. However, it should be noted that while legal needs survey results are typically relevant for large geographical areas, they generally can't provide reliable numbers for smaller geographical areas. They are also expensive to undertake and don't lend themselves to cost-effective regular updates. Official data sets. Surveys such as the National Census provide reliable population counts even in smaller geographies. They're readily available, well recognised, and a consistent measure over time. But such population counts don't identify people more likely to need legal assistance. We know that legal assistance providers target the more disadvantaged people among the general population, and there exists indicators of disadvantage, such as socioeconomic indexes for areas, otherwise known as CEFA. CEFA describes the level of disadvantage of an area, but does not provide account of disadvantaged people, and would not, for example, identify pockets of disadvantage within an otherwise more advantaged area. Indicators of disadvantage, such as the CEFA, also use criteria that don't necessarily identify legal needs. We also have other sources of information available through targeted research projects, council statistics, and ad hoc studies, including the local knowledge of stakeholders. These provide valuable insights and tap into what those on the ground closest to the population know from experience. These sources can be flexible, targeted, focused on a specific issue, and include contextual factors. It should be noted that these insights are generally not representative of the general population, and the findings may not be relevant for another area or a different context. But these are certainly valuable to inform local planning. Service data. This refers to administrative data collected by legal assistance providers. Service data reflects the services that were delivered and outlines the client profile of various services or provider types. However, service data does not generally provide an accurate picture of legal needs in the community. Service data represents services that were delivered, but doesn't tell us anything about the legal needs of those who, for whatever reason, did not go through the doors of legal assistance service providers. In other words, service data reflects only the portion of legal needs experienced by those that receive a legal service. Available evidence tells us that this is really only the tip of the iceberg. The Law and Justice Foundation of New South Wales Legal Australia-wide survey found in 2008 that legal advice was sought for only 15.5% of experienced legal problems. And this is a common finding internationally. In 2016, results of a legal needs survey in Canada showed that approximately 19% of people obtained some form of legal advice to address their legal problem. More recently, the Public Understanding of Law survey conducted in the state of Victoria found in 2023 that 21% of respondents who experienced a legal issue had obtained advice from a legal service. Could we estimate legal needs by multiplying service data counts to obtain the full size of the iceberg? The answer is no. This wouldn't be accurate because the true nature of legal need in the community is not simply a larger amount of the need identified through service data. Indeed, evidence shows that service data and legal needs surveys provide a very different picture of the experience of legal problems. For example, the Legal Australia-wide survey found that the most common legal issues people experienced in New South Wales are consumer issues, crime-related, or housing issues. But service data showed that the top legal issues people sought services for were family law matters in relation to children's living arrangements, tenancy, and driving-related offences. It should be noted that legal assistance delivery and service data is a function of the resources available and the focus of service providers in targeting specific areas of need in terms of problem type, geographic area, or target population, all of course within a constrained environment. For example, if there are specialist service providers in a given area, such as women's legal services, service data will unsurprisingly show a client profile with high proportions of female clients. That doesn't mean that men are less likely to experience legal problems, but simply that their needs are perhaps not met, or met through other ways or other providers. This is why the analysis of service data tells us more about the different levels of capacity of the legal assistance sector and the specificity of providers in a given area, rather than providing a comprehensive picture of legal needs. That doesn't mean service data analysis is not useful. If you take the example of a local provider targeting a particular community, changes in their service data may indeed reveal changes in the volume or nature of legal needs. So where does that leave us, and the question of how we can identify and estimate legal needs? Perhaps a good way to describe the challenge of it is to think of it as a jigsaw puzzle where all these various sources of information can play a role in piecing together the broader picture. Service data is definitely a part of the picture, but needs to be considered along with other information. And we can add more sources to draw from, including social services data, courts and police data, alongside health and social research. What needs to be considered is, what level of planning are we looking at? What data might be available at that level? And how do we put it all together in a relevant way? Data sources can be used together to form a nuanced picture of legal need relevant to the service or provider for service planning. The insights gained from Australian and international legal needs surveys, particularly around the relationships between socio-demographic characteristics and legal needs, allow us to use other readily available data, such as census data, to better understand the geographic distribution of legal needs. The Law and Justice Foundation of New South Wales Need for Legal Assistance Service Indicators, otherwise known as NLAS, are a good example of this. By applying these socio-demographic characteristics associated with increased legal needs to census data, we can count, within the general population, the people who meet those characteristics and generate estimates of the number of people likely to need legal assistance if they were to experience a problem. And because the census is based on place of residence, it's then possible to assess the geographic distribution of the NLAS population. That is, people who are likely to need legal assistance if they were to experience a legal problem. In practice, of course, the NLAS counts are not an exact measure of demand. Legal need fluctuates over time and does not necessarily translate into demand for services. However, NLAS indicators provide a readily available proxy estimate for demand of services that is comparable across all Australian geographic areas. Depending on a particular area or service provider's characteristics, other combinations of data sources might be especially relevant. Criminal courts data might be useful in assessing the needs for criminal representation services. Ad hoc research and social services data might provide more relevant information on specific target groups. Data sources come in all shapes and formats and don't necessarily speak to one another in a straightforward way. This is where the Foundation's legal needs dashboards might help. The Foundation's dashboards bring together some of the puzzle pieces to identify potential legal needs at different levels of geography across Australia and support service planning at many levels, from the national down to the very local. Indicators draw from the Australian Bureau of Statistics census, social services, police and court data, and also includes the NLAS indicators we mentioned earlier. To access the Foundation's data and dashboards, tutorial videos, publications, the Legal Australia-wide survey, NLAS indicators, and additional resources on assessments of legal needs, please go to lawfoundation.net.au. Thank you.